we'll see what happens, and I'll be gone, but we'll judge it then, I think.
Yeah. And they still had unpaid assessments until the end of May, so they just turned that over to collections.
Yeah, the resources are multiple.
I know. It
The administrative
took a
plus
ton
the-
of Heather's time.
Yeah.
She got the phone calls and Doug got the phone calls.
Yeah, we'll evaluate, see if it's worth it a little bit. See if it improves, or if we ever get any storms like that again.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not in our.
It's tricky, but I hope it happens.
Yes.
It just wasn't highest priority, and then it was complicated. so
Yes.
Kind of put it.
Well, and you know, I think especially with.
We didn't start with the proclamation. Okay, that's right.
Coming out to
Yeah. Although I have always complained, even though they're on public field, the lights are not properly set
Yeah.
down.
All right, it's 7:30, so I'd like to call the June 16th meeting to order. Ms. Barber, you may call the roll.
Mr. Vinch,
Here.
Mr. Bracken,
Here.
Ms. Franklin,
Here.
Ms. French,
Here.
Ms. Ornelas,
Here.
Mr. Snavely,
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. All right, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd like to join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second?
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Ornelas. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Great. We will begin tonight with public participation, and we will start with appointments to boards and commissions. May I have a motion to approve those appointments?
Yes, I move to nominate Barbara Smith and Peggy Brandstetter to the Environmental Commission, Catherine Lucas and Chris Skoglund to the Housing Advisory Commission, Dave Prithridge to Oxford Parking and Transportation Advisory Board, Therese Ernschwinder, Bobby Burke, Carol Katz, Robert Benson, and Joe Squantz to the Public Art Commission of Oxford, Jacob Young to the Recreation Board, and Catherine Rauer and Jill Mock to the McCullough Hyde Foundation.
Second.
Second by Councilor Snavely. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, they are appointed. Next, we will do a public hearing on our 2027 tax budget, and I will turn that over to our finance director. Oh, hang on, I need to do a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Snavely. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are in public hearing.
It's just if anyone has, any members of the audience would like to question the tax budget or ask anything about. Otherwise,
All right, if nothing has changed from the,
let's start our ordinance.
okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this public hearing about our, the 2027 estimated tax budget for the city of Oxford? All right, seeing none.
I move we close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Gave an airing to that. Now we will move on to our notice of legislative authority, and I will turn that over to City Manager Elliott.
You have before you a transfer of ownership. It's basically going to remain as the Oxford Pit Stop, which is located on College Corner Pike, and so it's just a change in the ownership.
I move that we receive it without comment.
I second.
All those in favor of receiving the notice of legislative authority without comment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we will move on. I have a proclamation for Pride Month that I'm going to read. Whereas June is recognized as Pride Month in commemoration of the 1969 Stonewall riots, a pivotal moment in the movement for LGBTQ+ civil rights led by queer people, including many people of color, whose advocacy advanced the pursuit of equality, dignity, and justice. And whereas Pride Month celebrates the significant cultural, economic, civic, and social contributions of LGBTQ+ individuals and communities throughout history and across the world, nation, and local communities, including the city of Oxford. And whereas Oxford is home to a vibrant and diverse LGBTQ+ community that enriches the city through its leadership, service, entrepreneurship, faith communities, scholarship, and civic engagement, and recognition of these contributions supports the City Council's goals of celebrating the people and places that make Oxford unique and fostering a connected, livable, and equitable community for all. And whereas Pride Month serves as an opportunity to raise awareness of ongoing efforts to secure equal rights, dignity, and freedom from discrimination for LGBTQ+ individuals, while affirming that all residents and visitors should feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported within our community. And whereas LGBTQ+ youth continue to face disproportionate risks of bullying, homelessness, substance misuse, and suicide, and research demonstrates that acceptance, inclusion, and visibility improve outcomes, underscoring the City of Oxford's commitment to supporting the rights of every person to experience equality, belonging, and opportunity regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. Now therefore I, Michael Smith, Mayor of the City of Oxford, Ohio, do hereby proclaim June 2026 as Pride Month in the City of Oxford and encourage all residents to recognize and celebrate the contributions of LGBTQ+ community to promote understanding and inclusion and to reaffirm our shared commitment to dignity, equality, and respect for all people. And if there's someone that would like to accept the proclamation, I can bring it down.
Everybody's looking at me. Megan Kuykendall, president of our Oxford P Flag chapter. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, I'm allowed to make remarks. No, I think this was a really piece of joyful news to share and an opportunity for so many members of our community to kind of come together, especially in the atmosphere of so many other supports and resources for queer and trans individuals kind of having to be hidden in different ways. It's really meaningful to have this support at the city level and to continue saying, hey, Oxford is a welcoming place. And I really appreciate that this is on the agenda, on the minds of our council members, and again, part of our larger plan to make an inclusive, livable community. So thank you all for this moment today, and thank you to those who are present to acknowledge it, because when we have an opportunity to celebrate, we need to take it. So thank you.
All right, moving on to public comments. Anyone wishing to address council about items that are not on the agenda or on the consent agenda, please come forward at this time and state your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 5 minutes.
My cheetah's on. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Oxford City Council. Excuse me. My name is Tom Cook, and I reside on Brown Road in Oxford. I am also an Oxford Township trustee. My reason for addressing you tonight is to formally inform you that on Monday, 8 June, the Oxford Township trustees unanimously agreed to support a resolution requesting the Butler County Commissioners support a 1-year moratorium regarding any zoning relative to data centers in Butler County. I am pleased to inform you that the county commissioners today approved to support a moratorium, but I understand it was only for 6 months. So, better than nothing. This decision by the Butler County Commissioners is important insofar as the Oxford Township, of which the city of Oxford is a part, is totally reliant upon all zoning decisions made by the county commissioners. Oxford Township, along with 6 other of the other 12 townships within Butler County, are not empowered to enact any zoning on their own. The Ohio Select Committee on Data Centers is currently gathering data to study the impact of data centers across the state. The township applauds the decision by the county commissioners to support this moratorium, even if it's only for 6 months. So, I stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you,
Tom.
Tom.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
No?
Okay, no? Can you speak up loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Steve Chaffin, 6022 Fairfield. At the last meeting, the last council meeting, your city manager indicated he was going to be providing you with recommendations from the Charter Commission. I had the opportunity and took advantage of attending all 3 of the Charter Commission meetings. I want to thank Chairperson French for allowing me to participate. Because of my background, I thought I could add some helpful information at the charter meetings. I think I did, hopefully. But one of the things I'd like to ask you is when you're considering the package that's being presented to you, you consider having some of the items voted upon separately. The commission is going to recommend to you that you vote on all the items up or down as a package. There's 2 provisions I think that maybe deserve special attention. One of them is the current provision in the code that deals with the dwelling size of units in the square mile. Back in '75, apparently the citizens group petitioned to have this on the charter, a charter amendment, to basically control growth in the square mile. And I know, Bill, you know that this is probably something that's not going to get done. But anyway, you're doing the new code, Sam. You guys are doing the new code, and I thought maybe we could wait until that code gets enacted to see what impact it has on square mile development before we vote on this, because it could be controversial. I don't know how people in the square mile feel about it. Some will probably not be in favor of removing that provision, but I think having a separate vote on that would make sense. The other one is there's going to be a recommendation that you amend the provision about the city manager being resident of the city of Oxford. The recommendation is going to be for allow council to waive that provision. There was a lot of discussion. Chris had brought it up that maybe it's not legal to require the city manager, but you could still do it in the contract. So that's an option. So I just think the citizens ought to have a chance to participate. I was sort of disappointed more citizens didn't show up and learn about the charter and how it works, but I just hope you'll consider some of that separate issues. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Ann Fuhr, I live on Dana Drive in Southern Knowles. At the last council meeting, I referenced fair housing training that took place yesterday at the monthly meeting of OSH, Oxford Area Solutions for Housing. The program was presented by Rebecca Griffin, Director of Education for Home Cincy, a nonprofit advocacy group. HOME is an acronym for Housing Opportunities Made Equal. The training was co-sponsored by the city. Thank you for that sponsorship. TOPS, our local nonprofit service provider, and thank you to Sherry Martin, Executive Director, and Chase Walter, the Housing Stability Coordinator, for their participation. And also by OSH, our local advocacy group. 29 participants provided positive evaluations of how informative the program was. I believe Rebecca's presentation, her work, and the work of Home Cincy is courageous. At a time when federal resources are being taken away from safety nets and assistance programs, nonprofits step in to fill the gaps. We have seen this locally as new coalitions and charities have been formed and expanded since January 20th, 2025. According to Rebecca, Ohio ranks second in the country among the states in the number of complaints received that allege potential violations of fair housing laws, second only to California. Is there more discrimination in Ohio than in other states? Perhaps not. Rebecca suggests that because HUD funds have been cut, phones that used to be available to receive complaints of fair housing discrimination are no longer answered. Ohio, though, has 6 enforcement organizations like Home Cincy that have formed or expanded to fill the gaps. And those groups are there to take and respond to complaints. The majority of complaints come from people with disabilities who experience violations of ADA regulations. I also want to thank Councilor Franklin for welcoming attendees last night on behalf of the city. This was the second time recently that I observed your engagement with the public at programs co-sponsored by nonprofits. The first was the April 16th civics class, Political Participation and Why It Matters, organized by Reverend Vanessa Cummings, co-sponsored by the NAACP, Oxford Citizens for Peace and Justice, and the League of Women Voters Oxford area. You and Township Trustee Tom Cook engaged for over an hour with constituents about your roles and issues of concern. A discussion of local use of flock cameras was promoted by a question from the audience, and I am glad to see that a similar discussion is on council's agenda tonight. I would imagine that this also be taken up by the Police Community Relations and Review Commission. Peace and justice require collaboration among local governments, nonprofit advocacy groups, representatives of education, business, and philanthropic sectors, faith communities, service providers, and individuals who use social media to call on neighbors to bring flags and signs to No Kings Honkin' Waves. Civic engagement, action, speaking truth to power.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, is there anyone else tonight?
Hi, everybody. I'm Heidi Schran at 319 West Withrow Street. Thanks for your service this evening and other evenings. I would just like to quickly state my desire for City of Oxford to cease using the flock or ALPR readers.
That's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah,
We'll-
and is it something that I can speak about now?
Yeah.
Just
You
super-
can speak about it later when
Yeah.
when it comes up. Everybody will have an opportunity.
Oh, I apologize.
That's right.
That's okay.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks for your service.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak to something that is not on the agenda or the consent agenda? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Snavely. Are there any items to be removed? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay, we will move on to resolutions. Ms. Barber, you may read the first resolution whenever you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and enter into a water supply revolving loan account agreement on behalf of the city of Oxford for the construction of water facilities and designating a dedicated repayment source for the loan.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Franklin, and I'll go to City Manager Elliott.
Thank you. So City Council approved a resolution authorizing an agreement with Building Crafts, Inc. for the construction of a new water softening facility at the water treatment plant on June 2nd. The amount of the agreement, including contingency, was $24.8 million. This contract amount will be financed by borrowing $19,988,616 from the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account of the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency's Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance. The loan will be repaid with current and increased water user fees. The total project costs are $26,083,846, with a loan amount of $19,988,616, with principal forgiveness of $4 million, and the remaining $2,095,230 paid with water capacity benefit and water improvement funds. So the total cost of borrowing will be $28,607,307, which includes the principal amount that I just mentioned of $19,988,616 and interest of $8,618,691. Our interest rate on this will be 2.51%. Our annual payment will be $953,576.92 for 30 years. This includes $4 million in loan forgiveness and $6 million at 0% interest. So staff and I are pleased to present this resolution for your consideration tonight. This resolution authorizes the city manager to apply for this loan from the water supply revolving loan account. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
All right, let me see if there's anyone from the public that would like to address this resolution before council. All right, seeing none. Council questions?
Well, I think this is a project that we want, and we knew it was going to be expensive and we'd have to borrow money for it, and this is how we do it.
And I think this is one way that we get some money back, get some low-interest loans, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did look at, when we built the original water facility, we issued mortgage revenue bonds in 1988. And at that time, the principal amount was $9.9 million at an interest rate of 7.62%.
Yeah. I recall that.
Yes. And of course, the total issue, including principal and interest, was $13 million. It was refunded several times to lower the interest rate, and it was finally paid off in 2014, 26 years later. But our final payment was $887,400 for principal and interest. So, and if you use the Consumer Price Index, the city would need $28.75 million to build that same facility in May 2026. That cost $9.9 million in 1988. So putting that in perspective, it's a good project.
I think it's a good project, and who now would say that we shouldn't have a water treatment plant? And those of us who've been here a long time remember the hoses that were laid out from Acton Lake when we went into all of our water shortages, and to not have those for all these years is a real bonus.
Yeah. So we've made real progress, and now we're going to soften our water finally.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. That resolution is adopted. Ms. Barbie, you may read the next resolution.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Yellow Light Incorporated for solar PV system at the senior center.
Move adoption.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Snavely, second by Vice Mayor French, and go back to city manager.
Thank you. So the city released in May of this year an RFP for design build services to install rooftop solar PV system at our senior center. The estimated cost at that time was $150,000. It also required a supplemental appropriation, which was added to our supplemental appropriation at our May 19th council meeting. Our bid opening was May 29th. 4 proposals were received and scored. The scoring resulted in Yellow Light Inc. selected as the lowest and best proposal. So this resolution before you tonight authorizes the city manager to sign a contract with Yellow Light Inc. for the installation of approximately 30 kW DC rooftop solar PV system at our senior center at a cost of $60,306 plus a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed $66,336. The city will apply for investment tax credits, direct pay, to offset the cost of the project. The system will offset approximately 68% of the inner usage and have a payback of approximately 8.3 years, which of course depends on the future cost escalator for electricity. The project will be visible from the street and is one more example of our commitment to carbon neutrality by 2045. And I want to thank Rena for her help in this project. She put in a lot of time, so thank you, Rena.
All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution before council? All right, seeing none, council questions and discussion?
It's a great project.
This
Fantastic.
is a great project.
I also want to thank Rena for her hard work.
Thank you, Rena.
Do we know why the estimated cost was $150,000 and it turned out the bids were substantially lower than that? Have the prices just declined, or what was it that made these bids come in so low?
We had two bids that were about the same, and then one bid that was much higher, and small print, I can't read it, but, you know, we decided to go with Yellow Light. I can't really share with you why the one bid was much higher. And we had Solar Energy Solutions that came in at a total of, well, if I can read it here.
You want, Rena's ready to jump in on this.
Yeah, Rena,
you want-
jump in, because I can't read the fine print.
The simple answer is the system size. So the one that we are recommending for approval is smaller than we initially anticipated, but it is the most cost effective. So part of our scoring criteria was price per watt. So this was the lowest and best at price per watt, had the most favorable ROI. And we felt that the increased cost to offset more generation just wasn't worth it. So that's why they were so different, mainly just from system size. We were initially going out for about like 90% of our array to cover about 90% of our consumption, and landed at just shy of 70. So
Just shy of what?
70, or I think the exact is 68%.
68, yep.
68,
So
yeah.
a bit of a smaller system size, but more economically favorable and still really great emissions reductions.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Love it. We'll move on to the third resolution. Ms. Barb, you may read it whenever you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Statewide Ford for the purchase of two 2026 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles with specified manufacturer-installed options at a cost not to exceed $87,364.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Ornelas, and we'll go to Chief Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our annual purchase of vehicles. It's in the 2026 capital improvement budget. $150,000 is budgeted. With purchasing these two Ford Interceptors would cost $87,363.60 from Statewide Ford, who holds the state contract. So they'll replace some vehicles that are over 12 years old. And of course, there'll still be, while it comes with several installed options, we still have upfitting like the light bars and things to put on it, so.
All right. See if there's anyone from the public that would like to address this resolution before council. All right, seeing none. Council questions and discussion? All right, I think we'll go with state contract. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fantastic. All right, we will move on to ordinances. We have a couple of first readings. Ms. Barber, you may read the first reading.
An ordinance approving the final subdivision application and plat for an area referred to as Lake Forest, consisting of 4 lots situated on 97.292 acres, currently addressed as 1701, 1983, and 1986 Lake Forest Drive, Oxford, Ohio, 45056, with conditions.
All right, we will go to Mr. Perry.
Good evening, council members. I've got some slides here, if they could magically appear. You may remember from September, there was a request from Jim Clausen and his group to subdivide a Lake Forest Cove subdivision, which required some additional plating before that. So these next two items are related. Just got a few slides to show the general area because not too many folks travel back there very often. So if you're familiar with the Annex Housing Complex and Lake Forest Drive, the fairly new road that was built several years ago, there's an area where the South Point Parkway connects over to Lake Forest Drive, and that's where this development would be. In order to do that, there's a 97-acre tract that, because of the Lake Forest Drive roadway going through the middle of it, there had never been any right-of-way the right-of-way was not, did not split that land. So this first plat would do that, and then the next plat after this item would actually create the 34-lot subdivision and allow it to be recorded so the developer could record those lots. That's what the subdivision plat would look like, kind of as a rendering overlaid on the aerial photo. You can kind of get an idea of that. This may be familiar from September to some of you from the preliminary plat. This is the overall 97 acres with the roadway that's already installed there and built. And then it's in 3 pages to show all those areas. And then lastly, for the next item, the reason for the overall plat to create the lot that can then be subdivided again. So it's a kind of a multi-step surveying procedure that has to happen that was previously reviewed by the Planning Commission and Council. Happy to answer any questions. Yes.
All right, do you want questions now, or do you want public comment?
Let me ask for public comments first, if there's anyone from the public who would like to address this.
Yeah. Tom Cook again. Just a question, has there been a consideration about the traffic impact on Route 27 with these additional homes dumping out onto 27?
Happy to answer that. Great question. There was an analysis done on that when the plat on 27 South was submitted and approved. That plat has since expired, but at the time, the city engineer did do an analysis based on the complete 97 acres were to develop, that the improvements that would be necessary would, I believe, only require the deceleration lane, I think it's called, on 27 South, which has already been installed. No additional improvements for any traffic signals of any kind that I'm aware of. So a new study was not required with this additional subdivision, even though it was not known at the time that the plat on the south end was approved, which has since expired. And the reason for the change, if you're wondering, was because the south end did not have gravity sewer access. So they're starting at the north end because they do not have to build a lift station to pump the sewage uphill. This area would not require that because it is closer to the wastewater treatment plant. So that's why the kind of the flip-flop and where the development would start. A little bit of history there.
All right, now council questions and discussion.
I have a question. There was a fairly in-depth discussion about the prior rezoning that took place in September. And my question is whether this 17-acre parcel was the subject of that rezoning, or was this 17 acres already zoned as single-family residential?
The 17 acres was in the field, they call it down zone because it was R4. It was down zoned to R2 in order to take advantage of the open space residential. And that was the only portion that they wanted to use or develop at that time. They're perfectly happy to down zone the rest of it if they're ready to move forward with, if you saw the drawing, there's a little bit of a stub street that kind of to the north that they would continue to rezone the rest of that to the R2A as well.
R2A being?
The lower density.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, it is, this second item is within the area that was rezoned already by the city council. Yes.
All right. Seeing no other questions, this is a first reading, so we will see this again in 2 weeks. All right, we'll move on to our second first reading. You may read it whenever you're ready.
An ordinance approving the final subdivision application and plat for Lake Forest Cove, Section 1, consisting of 36 lots situated on 17.462 acres, currently addressed as 1701 Lake Forest Drive, Oxford, Ohio, 45056, with conditions.
All right, we're back to Mr. Perry. These two are linked together.
Yep. Don't have any additional comments to add. It's the same project, different plat.
All right, let me see if there's anyone from the public that would like to address this ordinance. All right, seeing none. Council questions about?
So is this a preliminary or a final?
This is a final.
And are there any changes from the preliminary?
There are no changes.
Okay. And do we think he's actually going to do this one?
We're
You
pretty
don't
sure.
have to answer that.
We're pretty sure.
I was giving him a hard time just the other day. I
It's a
said,
good question.
"You're going to really do this one?" All
Well,
right.
at least we know the gravity sewer part is in favor of it.
That
so
makes
That
sense.
helps.
Yeah, it makes sense why they would
And
do
there seems
that.
to be demand for single-family housing, so hopefully it will happen.
Thank you. Oh, and is there a lake back there?
There is.
Yes, there
There's
is.
an existing lake.
And it doesn't show on this plat, that's why I was,
Yeah, it's not colored in.
is it
so
on the left or the right?
It's on the right.
Okay.
So it'd be,
So it's behind the houses on Timber
Yes.
Cove Trail, whatever that
page
is.
81 of the
Yeah.
packet shows a kind of an outline for it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then on the
And
slides.
will that be owned by the HOA?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, there's no more questions. This is the first reading. We will see this again in a couple of weeks. We will move on to second readings. Ms. Barber, you may read the first, second reading.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 3844, supplemental budget ordinance number 3, to make supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2026.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Snavely, and we will go to Finance Director right now.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. As you were aware, after our last meeting, changes would be coming for the second reading of this ordinance. A transfer of $1,730,305 from all four quadrants of the CBCs and $389,379 appropriated from the Water Improvement Fund from the PFAS settlements were used to add local funds to the amount of the loan to help minimize the cost of the loan. Those two items total $2,119,684.
All right. See if there's anyone from the public that would like to address this ordinance before council. All right, seeing none. Council questions? All right. Ms. Barber, you may call the roll.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Ornelas?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mr. Vinch?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes, all right, that ordinance is adopted. You may read the next second read whenever you're ready.
An ordinance authorizing the tax budget for the year 2027 and directing that the same be transmitted to the Butler County Auditor.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor French, second by Councilor Snavely, and we're back to Finance Director Rednow.
Hello again. We have no changes from the first reading of the tax budget.
All right, is there anyone from the public that would like to address this ordinance before council? All right, seeing none. Any council questions? Something we have to do every year, so, all right. Ms. Barber, you may call the roll.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Ornelas?
Yes.
Mr. Snavely?
Yes.
Mr. Vinch?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mayor Smith?
Yes, that ordinance is adopted. All right, now we are moving on to discussion items, which includes our discussion of the flock cameras. And kind of the way this is going to go is Chief Jones is going to give us an overview of some information. I will allow public comments, but so as to not put staff and the chief on the spot, we're not really prepared for questions. We will listen to questions from the public and reply to you at a later date, but you will all be more than welcome to come up, state your name and address for the record, and we will give you 5 minutes to make a statement. But we'll start with Chief Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to explain a little more about what our flock cameras are and what they do, and hopefully clear up some misunderstandings. Certainly, I've gotten a lot of public questions, and I know many people don't like them, but they've become a great tool for the police department. We've solved a lot of cases with them. So what are they? Well, first, I'm going to start off answering Councilor Franklin's question that she had posed, and a lot of misinformation, and understandably so, when people talk about the MOU with Flock. And this is where I may need the law director's help if I misspeak. But many people are referencing an MOU that was signed in 2022. What that, and because that is listed on the council agenda from back when we entered into the agreement with Flock. Well, that MOU was actually signed in 2022, is no longer valid. That was a trial run for the police department to get access to Flock's system, and that was well before we had cameras. So we were literally the ones accessing everyone else's data with Flock. You know, we got access to the system, and we had to request share from those agencies, and so we got the ability to start using the software, even though we had no cameras in the city. So that was kind of our trial agreement. And then after using it and solving cases without cameras in our city, but using cameras in other neighboring jurisdictions, we signed on. We brought it to council, and council approved it. You know, OPD's been using ALPR technology since the early 2000s, and basically that technology had become out of date and was no longer working. Flock cameras have provided a very efficient solution for us, and a cost-effective solution. So the agreement that we use is the order form that was signed on 2/7/24, and it incorporates the terms and conditions. And anybody can go online and look at the terms and conditions of the Flock, which outlines who owns the data. So the data that Oxford owns, or the data that Oxford collects through our cameras, is owned by Oxford. We determine who we share it with. Flock does have limited access to that data for maintenance, for training. They have to be able to get into the system and see if a camera is working and if they need to fix it. But they're not allowed to share our data. So after a lot of help with the law director and clearing that up and reaching out to Flock again to clarify that, that's the answer to Councilor Franklin's question. What are Flock cameras? The ones that most people are aware of are these ALPR cameras. They capture images of vehicles in a public view. They read license plates. They read vehicle characteristics. They don't use facial recognition. They don't identify drivers or passengers. They're installed around the city in 14 strategic locations in the city of Oxford. What does Flock not do, despite what you may read in the newspaper or read on social media? They don't capture the name of vehicle owners. They don't capture personal conversations. I've seen some pretty outrageous claims that they're connected to cell phone data. They don't capture the interior vehicle details. They don't allow for real-time tracking of individuals, and we don't use them to monitor the daily activities of law-abiding citizens. And probably the most outrageous thing I saw here locally on Oxford Talk was that they were connected to Ring doorbell cameras. So I don't know where that came from, but if somebody can come show me how to do that, sure, but it's just not true. How do the police use Flock? And I apologize if you can't see that, but basically what happens is a crime occurs. Oftentimes the crime will occur at a place that has security camera footage. And then we're able to get a picture of maybe a vehicle in a parking lot. But we don't have a license plate. So we can go and we can do searches using these search fields, and you'll see the different fields. We have to list the offense type, the reason, the license plate if we have a plate. If we don't have a plate, we can enter some things about the vehicle that we're looking for, and we can narrow down the time frame. So we've used that for various things: robberies, burglaries, simple little hit-skip crashes at Kroger parking lot. I mean, it's a bad parking lot. People bump into each other. They leave. They may not even know they hit a car, but we have tracked down someone. So is that a crime? Maybe not, but it helps the quality of life of an individual who can be very frustrated who got their car hit in the Kroger parking lot. But Flock is not the end-all be-all. It just helps us develop investigative leads. The other way we use Flock is we get hot list alerts. So this is an example of an email I got. You can see the date, time, the camera that hit, and I blurred out a little bit of the license plate, but it was a vehicle with a warrant. So that vehicle was coming into Oxford. You can't see the picture there because after a certain amount of time, that picture disappears. And we got a real-time alert. Now, in that case, I don't know that an officer ever went and looked for that car because they may have been on another call. But you can't just use a flock alert to stop a car. It doesn't develop probable cause. It doesn't produce evidence or guilt. The officer has to, one, verify that that's still an active alert, right? Like flock's only updated with leads every couple times a day. So we have to run that plate, see if it is a valid warrant. If it is a valid warrant, now we gotta go find the vehicle. You have to locate the vehicle, so you gotta travel through traffic, try to find it. And then, if it's a warrant, you need to observe the driver, verify it's a valid warrant, and then stop the car. So there's things you have to do. Now, if it's a stolen vehicle, maybe less of that. You just have to verify it's still a stolen vehicle and then attempt to stop the car. So I'm just trying to show you how we've locally used Flock. This is what you get from a Flock search. So this is actually a stolen vehicle that we had recently. And when we searched it, these are the images we found. But as you can see, what you can't determine is you can't determine the driver. I can't determine the number of occupants. I can't tell what race the occupants are. Can't tell what country they're from. It's literally the most objective data possible that officers use when we're developing leads. This is an example of a nighttime search. Same car, but you can barely tell because it's so dark. But what's cool about the technology, and of course I blurred it out, but is even though that looks like that, it translates the license plate for you. So that's what we find very useful. This technology is greatly improved over the technology we had in, say, 2005 on 27 North. There's also 2 additional Flock cameras that people don't talk about, but they're just general security cameras. And they're something that we've tried to get in various places in the city. It's no different than many of the Miami University cameras that are around town. They don't capture license plate data. These are just some wide angle shots of the Uptown Park, but they're just pan cameras. We've solved a few cases using them, but we wouldn't be able to necessarily identify someone from it, but you could identify a crime that happens, and so they're a good investigative tool or for monitoring. The other one is at the new dog park. We had, for several years before we had the availability of Flock cameras, there was a building down there that would get broken into, and we had no solution to put cameras down there because we didn't have Wi-Fi or the ability to do it. But Flock offers an economical solution to that. And then now with the trail and the dog park and more traffic, it seems like a logical place to add in some security footage there. So the crime prevention benefits we see from it is that a visible camera discourages things. It discourages vehicle theft. If you know there's cameras in a certain neighborhood, you may go away from that neighborhood. Why do stores put surveillance cameras on their buildings? It's to prevent crime. So obviously prevention of crime is sometimes difficult to determine how effective it is, but that is one deterrence benefit we hope to gather from it. But what we do know is it allows for a much rapid response to calls in identifying suspect vehicles. It's improved information sharing for us. It's definitely led to the recovery of stolen vehicles for us. It's a force multiplier. Those cameras work 24/7. They cover areas that officers can't just sit in and watch for cars coming. It allows our officers to be proactive. If a vehicle's coming into town that's stolen, or it's a missing person or something to that effect, the officer gets an alert, oh, let's go look at this. Instead of just sitting here running radar on a car, on a road, you don't know that something's happening in your city. Mass surveillance concerns, certainly a legitimate concern, and that's what I hear. This is mass surveillance. People don't like it. But characteristics of mass surveillance, if you look at that, That's where you're monitoring individuals continuously. You're identifying specific people to monitor. You're tracking their behavior patterns. You're collecting their personal data. You're listening into phone calls. You're doing things that are intrusive. Well, an important distinction of flock cameras, these are monitoring vehicle license plate issued by the government, mind you, the plate that it's looking for. It's not identified, the vehicles are in a public place. They're not identifying individuals. It's not using facial recognition. They're designed to support investigations of crime and public safety incidents. And courts have long ruled that the use of ALPR technology is illegal under the Fourth Amendment. So we're not doing anything illegal. We're not doing anything that is intrusive. Privacy protections and access control. So there's no biometric data collection. We're not connecting it to cell phone data. We have limited access by our authorized personnel. The search activity is all logged, it's audible. Searches have to comply with departmental policy. Everything you do in that system is leaving a record that can be reviewed and audited. So when I get a public records request, or when Counselor French tells me, oh, if you want to use my car for this, go ahead. Well, no, I'm not going to run that in this system, and what's going to be my reason? You know, I can't. It's going to be audited. It's going to be tracked, and that would flag. So just like in LEADS or other criminal justice databases, we're not going to do that. There's a strict access control there. So our personnel have to access it for a criminal investigation or some sort of authorized law enforcement activity. So network sharing, this is probably one of the hot topics. We've talked about it in different settings. We do share our network with 215 state and local police departments. We don't share it with federal agencies. We want access to their network just the way they want access to our network. Law enforcement collaborations are very important in a college community where we got students from all over, and literally we sit within 5 miles of an Indiana state line and pretty close to Kentucky. So our students travel everywhere. So imagine just when I was a detective back in the early 2000s, and I had a suicidal student go missing. Parents from Northern Ohio wanting us to solve this. This would have been a great tool to find out which direction he went. Ultimately, that student was recovered in Kansas through the use of credit card data. Okay, so there's other ways we can do it, but Flock would have been a great tool then to use. So that's part of the reason we share. And then the other thing I'll explain, because you'll see in the journal news will publish data. They've made many public records requests, and they got somebody sitting there going through all the data. And what they're going to see is thousands upon thousands of searches of the Oxford network, and people are going to lose their mind. Well, what's happening is this is how you search. When I go to search a car, this drop-down box, I can search my networks, or I can search all networks that's shared with me. So in default, most of the time, if I'm searching for a car that I'm looking for an investigation, do I just want to just search the Oxford cameras? Or do I want to make sure I grab the camera on 27 South by the sheriff's office or Hamilton's cameras? I mean, if you want to be an investigator, it's an easy answer. It may not feel good to many of the people in the audience or good to some people, but that's how you investigate crimes. We search all networks. So that's going to show up that I did a search on California's system or Alabama's system, or basically when I hit all networks, I just access their data. And that's what you're going to see of agencies accessing our data. Do they actually get any images? Probably not. The crime occurred, say, in Illinois. The car never hit Oxford, but they did a search that included all networks. So now, they did a search of the Oxford network. So just a little context there before we get too worked up over other agencies searching your data. When I log into Flock, obviously there's been public outcry. They're a company that had to respond to a lot of different things and tighten security, and we've learned from it as well. So now when you log in, I get this warning that I'm accessing a restricted information system. It lists all these states that I'm not allowed to search for immigration enforcement or reproductive care. Ohio is not one of them. We have our state legislator, is not probably jumping on this, but to pass laws. But those states have passed those laws. So I have to say that I'm not going to use this in any of their data for that. So, but even though Ohio isn't a part of that, we have the ability to apply those filters to our data, and we've done that where we prevent searches if for immigration enforcement or reproductive care, if that's selected. Its access in our agency is limited to sworn officers and dispatchers. Keep it as low as we can. Any misuse would violate our policies. And quite frankly, when you look at the data, that if somebody unauthorized got into our system, it's not as critical as the data we have in all our other databases, such as LEADS, NCIC, our body cameras, which are much more invasive than flock cameras, because they're going into private residences, our records management system, and other investigative databases that has much more sensitive information. So those systems are honestly what we should be more concerned about when it comes to security. Financial overview, I was asked to provide some of this. Back in February of 2024, our initial cost was $50,600. That included the $42,000 for the 14 cameras plus the implementation and installation fees. So then reoccurring cost would have been $42,000. However, we added 2 more cameras on because we had $50,000 budgeted. So we're up to $48,000 reoccurring costs per year. Now there is replacement costs sometimes from vandalism, and if we have enough of that, we may have to file an insurance claim, but that costs us some when we get vandalism of these cameras. So that's something we're trying to narrow down, but there's a lot of people out doing harm to them. But when you think about that, $50,000 budgeted compared to what the cost of one police officer are, over $100,000 per year, that's probably, when you add in benefits, I think Flock is a very efficient investment when it comes to solving crime. It's cheap compared to what it does and what a police officer can do alone. So some success stories in Oxford. I listed some things up there. We don't specifically track, this case was solved due to Flock, okay? Because it's not that simple. Like, there is still police work that has to be done. You can't attribute everything to Flock. It might help get a car. Certainly stolen cars sometimes. You might be able to say, well, I never would have found that car had it not been for Flock. But we don't specifically track it. I don't want to create a public record and determine what's a solve, what's a not a solve. Sometimes it helps eliminate alibis and various things. But you can see up there, but I want to read some success stories that we talked about and came up with. I have 16 examples, but I won't read them all. In 2023, I got at least 3 different things, and that was before we ever owned cameras. One of them being a bicyclist who was hit and seriously injured, and we recovered the vehicle in Trenton days later using Flock cameras. But in 2024, we had a ring of vehicle thefts. It was during the months of October and November. There were over 8 attempts to steal Kia and Hyundai vehicles in the city. Only one of them was successful. Mostly it was damaged and then they weren't able to get it. But the vehicle was observed on Flock cameras in Oxford and then in Hamilton after that theft. So we recovered the vehicle in Hamilton the following day, and literally during that investigation, officers were alerted to a stolen vehicle from Hamilton coming into Oxford, which then we stopped, traffic stopped, got the suspect, and then that led to the suspect's confession that, oh yeah, it was me that damaged all these other cars, because we caught him literally red-handed in the car. A 2005 criminal damaging case. A disgruntled ex-spouse came to Oxford, smashed the windows on his ex-wife's car. Witnesses and victims described the suspect's vehicle. Search flock. We located on our cameras during the time frame. But following that incident, it was hitting up in Dayton area. But it was later discovered he had swapped the license plates. And but that helped us narrow it down, and he was eventually successfully charged through that investigation with the help of Flock. 2005 sexual assault report. It occurred in Oxford, but the person resides in another city, and it led to the arrest of the suspect, confirming the timing of the events. And another 2025 report, a child endangering report from Talawanda School District. The bus driver reported the mother was not home when they attempted to drop off their kids at the house. Flock was able to determine where she was, and it resulted in a charge to the child for child endangering. And then a more recent one in 2026, a sexual assault, where the victim stated a male had sexually assaulted her in Oxford and in Florida. She was able to describe how kind of the route they took down to Florida and back. Basically, detectives were able to get a detailed timeline of when the suspect left Ohio and when they traveled, and then get warrants. And then when they eventually returned to Oxford, it alerted us that, oh, they're back in Oxford, and we were able to locate that, traffic stop that vehicle, and serve those warrants on the rape. But other cases that come to mind are cases that never really come to fruition in court. It's when a local religious institution has someone making threats against them who lives, in Columbus area, and we can put a local hot list alert on his car. He had some mental health issues, and it just would let us know if his car ever hit in Oxford, and then we could go over. These were serious threats of violence. So that just helps us if that were to happen. And then we had a stalking case involving Miami University students that led to an indictment and charge, and also, again, what it allowed us to do, this person was from out of town. When that vehicle hit our cameras, it alerted us, and we were able to go over to that house and make sure that they were safe. So they do a lot of things. Again, it's not the end-all be-all of policing, but we've certainly feel that they're a successful tool. We take the steps we do to make sure it's being used right. Lieutenant Price attended today a training class on some features that Flock has added for auditing purposes that will help us audit and see if multiple searches because there is misuse at times. So Flock is responding, and then we're learning more as well to help with the auditing process. So I think I hit everything I wanted to hit, and be happy to answer questions afterwards.
All right, let me open this up for,
Mayor, could I make a comment
Yeah.
too before that?
okay, no,
Councilor Bryan.
I was going to say, I know it's not typical order, but if we ask questions first, it might address a lot of the audience questions, but I don't want to break whatever protocol
Okay,
that we think is
I
appropriate.
I'd like to address the contract part of it, just to clear up any misunderstandings, because they were out there. So Councilor Franklin called me a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the MOU and the contract, and I have to confess, I didn't remember what had happened 3 years ago, because it is standard operating procedure that when there's an intent to enter into an agreement, that a memorandum of understanding is signed or a letter of intent. Typically, they define what it is during what I'll call this period of exploration to see if the parties want to enter into a formal contract. That's exactly what happened here. What was unusual about this MOU, which I didn't catch at the time in 22, was there was no expiration date on there, and then in the terms and conditions, there wasn't anything that said that this supersedes the MOU. But it's clearly understood as standard procedure that the MOU goes away because it's typically not a binding agreement other than for the access to what the flock technology was. So since then, and going back and remembering what had happened, we've confirmed through Flock in writing that the MOU is no longer a valid document, that the terms and conditions of the contractual arrangement between Flock and the City of Oxford are governed solely by the terms and conditions, which expressly say Oxford owns that data. I also went online. I've got an article from The Guardian on April 6th where Kerry McCormick from Flock Group, he's the public relations manager, said 100% of the data, there's a quote, 100% of the data, which is the photo of the public license plate, is owned by your customers, et cetera. So I think that there's ample evidence there, both from the express contractual terms and from public statements of the company, that that Flock is not accessing the data. Well, they may be, but that's a different issue. But that the City of Oxford owns and controls that data. And then the next thing I want to say is from the law director's desk, that the decisions on whether or not the Flock technology are used are purely a matter of policy. This is not a legal issue as much as it is a policy decision. I will note that, for example, many of you realize the law reacts to changes in society. In 2014, Chief Justice Roberts had the realization that a warrant should be required to search a cell phone because of the digital technology that was contained in there. But you think that was only done 12 years ago. If you think that, and I think that the chief rightly pointed out, I don't anticipate that the Ohio legislature is going to address the issue. So whatever happens as it relates to the discussion here is really solely up to you as the legislators who decide what the policy is for this city.
Okay, let's do that. Let's have council discussion and any questions for the chief, and then we will do public comments.
I would rather do public
I'm gonna-
comment.
Can I make a distinction? I didn't want council discussion as much as, can we ask questions of Chief Jones before the public asks questions, because I think it might answer a lot of them, but I'm okay either way.
Are you allowing public discussion, public comments?
I
It's
think,
coming, just,
I do think I understand the spirit of your question, but I don't want to give the impression that we're trying to curtail public
Yeah.
input
No,
by
Right.
speaking and asking their questions on their behalf. So I would like to hear public comment
yeah, I would
first.
do.
Sure.
All right, then let's go ahead and do public comment. You may come forward and state your name and address for the record, and we will give you 5 minutes. And if you have a question, we will definitely get you an answer at some point in time.
I'm Janice Dutton. You probably already knew that, 302 West Vine Street. You, sir, are a tough act to follow. So, the number of communities that are canceling Flock contracts or refusing to have them to begin with is growing. And you kind of have to ask why. It's not just a bunch of people screaming on the street. So when a council member says to me that based on explicit assurances requested and received from Flock, no one has access to our cameras and our data but the City of Oxford. Well, that's not true. So also, I'm really glad to hear that you're not sharing data with federal agencies. However, once it leaves Oxford, you have no control of how those law enforcement agencies are sharing that information. So another thing is that corporations lie. Keds sneakers did not make me run faster or jump higher when I was a child. Taser International's marketing, with its lies about the safety of the weapons, led to the tragic 2007 death of Miami student Kevin Prescura uptown. It didn't really take me that long, before that happened, to find the scientific research and formal judicial inquiries to refute Taser's claims. It was also easy to find the red flags warning against Taser use years before council agreed to purchase them, including a lawsuit from its own investors about the lies about safety. So the red flags about what I see, a sweeping violation of our civil liberties, was out there before you approved the contract with Flock. The ACLU has been all over it, and it continues to be. So there's plenty of information out there that you can find that. So the claim that no one has access is really highly debatable, and here are a few examples. Actually, they do have access. Mountain View, California, February 2026. A police department, this often comes from police, that's part of the issue. A police department initiated audit found that federal and state agencies accessed data from their flock cameras for a period in 2024 in violation of the city's policy. I don't think we have one, and without its permission or knowledge. The chief of police shut down the cameras immediately, citing no longer having confidence in that particular vendor, and that the insurance he was given by the flock team, or having no confidence in that particular vendor, and that the assurances he was given by the flock team and that he gave in turn to the community were not grounded in flock's actual practices. The city council unanimously terminated the contract later that month. Cambridge, Massachusetts, you'd think there would be smart people there. So prior to city council temporarily suspending the police department's use of flock, the police commissioner had already asked Flock to deactivate them due to the need to examine the relationship of Flock and if they are trustworthy, and I claim they're not. In December, Cambridge ended the contract because they discovered that Flock had installed 2 additional cameras without the city's awareness. Just last week, South Portland, Maine, voted 5-2 to immediately end the city's use of their Flock ALPRs, even though the contract doesn't expire until 2027. The police had, this again, sharing and access are 2 different things. The police had already decided to stop sharing data to the national database, limiting it to state agencies only. On April 15th, the city disabled the ability for partner agencies to search for immigration-related purposes. So I don't know quite how that works here because there's no transparency and there's no policy. In a troubling statement from there, the city said that the Flock audits do not show whether South Portland data was returned, viewed, or downloaded in nationwide searches. So the city can't independently verify if a search actually drew upon South Portland data. So Bloomington, Indiana, ended its contract with Flock in April of this year. One council member stated, "The strongest protection for civil liberties is not better settings or better assurances, it is restraint. You cannot misuse data that does not exist. You cannot be compelled to share data you never collected. And you cannot normalize a form of power you have chosen not to build." It's nice to see many of you uptown at rallies. We're all full of contradictions, but to normalize a tool, it's really easy to step across the line into hypocrisy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Cook from Brown Road. Thank you, Chief, for that information. I am very comfortable that the city is not sharing any of the Flock data. But as you stated, Chief, that the data collected in Oxford is collectible from other law enforcement agencies. The Butler County Sheriff has a contract with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. He has stated that he will aggressively go after people who he considers illegal aliens, and he has access to the data coming out of the Oxford Flock system, and that makes me uncomfortable.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin Roining, 9 Cary Circle in Oxford, obviously. I started off feeling a little bit better at your presentation when you made it clear that Flock did not have access. But then when you told me that 2,200 cities and states do have access, I got terrified again. There are multiple examples now of Flock cameras being misused and abused, from police officers using them to stalk their partners, to police officers using them in other counties to do immigration work. At the same time, I understand that there is a balance always between security and safety, and that we need to find that balance. And I just wonder if Flock is going too far in the wrong direction. You talk about it being an efficient use of police officers, and I understand that but I'd question what the real metrics are for that efficiency. I know that you can tell stories, but as you yourself point out, it's hard to say that any one thing is the cause of any certain successful case. And you operated before Flock, and I would just wonder how many of those cases would have been solved before Flock versus after Flock. And then finally, I want to address one point you mentioned about Flock and Ring Doorbell. There was an agreement between Ring Doorbell. You can go to BBC News, search on it, at one point where Flock would allow access to Ring. People got upset. Ring had a horrible Super Bowl ad that people got freaked out by, where they wanted to show you could track puppies, but everyone realized that that could also be used to track people in their neighborhoods. We're seeing Flock try to build out relationships with others in a similar way. They backed off from Ring, but I've read stories about, and I couldn't find one of the companies in general, about them working with like Lowe's and similar stores to use Flock cameras in their parking lots. And again, it's about a question of where exactly is this line. And I fear that we are crossing into it to a place where it becomes very easy for those in control to track anyone that they'd like to at any time. And though I trust you, Chief, I'm not sure if I trust 2,200 some other chiefs of police. So thank you.
I love that. You go.
Hello, my name is Brandon. I live at 319 West Withrow Street. I'd like to applaud everybody who's spoken so far. I'd like to co-sign Janice's research, if I could. It was fantastic. I'll be brief. I would just like to say that I'm against corporate surveillance in any way, shape, or form, and our participation in it, though it may be useful in some instances. Thank you.
Hi, Heidi Schran, 319 West Withrow Street. Thank you for your presentation and all of your work that you do. And I do know that it can be a very effective tool to make your very difficult job a little bit easier, though I would like to also echo a lot of the comments already made. And my concern is not with the City of Oxford's police department, but what happens to the data if it is used by, resourced by other departments, or if there is a data breach, which is very possible. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you all. That was extremely helpful.
One other thing I wanted to add, that under Ohio Public Records Law, revised code section 149.43A1 YY, images and data captured by an automated license plate recognition system that are maintained in a law enforcement database are not public records. In addition, which, I mean, again, doesn't address the fear because this is mostly talking about governmental use. But in addition to that, there probably are some other public records exceptions that would make the data not accessible more broadly than the governmental use.
All right. Counsel, who wants to kick it off?
I'll just briefly say, I appreciated the chief's description, and I feel confident of how Oxford Police Department uses the data. My concern, and it's hard to weigh the benefits which you articulated really well against our information being accessed by somebody else and then them giving it, for example, to ICE. And I don't know what we do about that, but that is my concern.
I guess I'll have to say I share
And
that.
if you want to respond to that, you can, I think. Can the chief respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any of the public comments, that would be great
Yeah.
too.
Thank you, chief.
Yeah, so I meant to talk about it a little bit during the presentation, but I just got going there. You know, a lot of, I mean, that's the challenge that a lot of agencies are struggling with. I mean, they see the need for the networks, but, you know, the similar communities have similar concerns, and I think that's a good thing about local law enforcement is you build that trust with your local community, and other agencies have that trust with their local community, and people say the same thing, like, well, we know you guys are the good guys, but, you know, we don't know about these other officers over there. So like other agencies locally here have talked about how do they restrict it down to where it's still effective? Do we narrow down that scope? Like, does an agency in California really need access to our data? The reality is they may not. They may, if it comes this way, they can call you and do that, but then it's the kind of what I call the efficiency or the effectiveness of it is worn down. So we are talking with other local police chiefs about how they're responding to these concerns. But then I understand some of the fears, but I also what I don't understand, or what I have a hard time comprehending, is why are we so afraid of some other agency from out of state getting access to a picture of a license plate in Oxford, Ohio? They're not coming to get that person in Oxford, Ohio. They could have a serious warrant, and they're likely not coming, or they're at least going to work with the local law enforcement agency to get more information about that data. So it is hard. Like granted, I have a much different perspective than the folks coming up here, but I think there's opportunities to narrow down the scope, and I think we are looking at that. And I think that's what a lot of agencies have responded to. To the gentleman in the public from Kerry's Circle, when you go to Lowe's, you're already under surveillance by their cameras and their license plate readers. Yeah. So, I mean.
That's not government.
I'm not talking to you, Janice. You're right, it's not government, it's a corporate thing, that's what you're referring to. But so my point is when you go to Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart, they're recording it. So I don't know why you don't trust the police to have either. So okay, well, I'm just letting you know, when you go to these places, you're under a lot of surveillance. Your phone contains more data that's more damaging than Flock. And if we're really doing an investigation, we're probably going to seize your phone, and we're going to find out where you've been. But yeah, no, I just wanted to respond. Like, no, it's not a myth. Lowe's and other places have the Flock systems. We don't have access to their Flock system, but law enforcement agencies in that local place can sign agreements for it. So, there was one other. Anyway, Councilor Bracken, I think that.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't sure if you had addressed.
I'm still worried about, I'm very confident with how OPD handles the information. I'm not worried about it. When I have my license plate, anybody in town in a public area can see my license plate, and so you're taking a picture of it does not bother me. What bothers me is in another jurisdiction where they are, I'm trying to be real careful not to implicate like a sheriff in some county, for example. But they might have a completely different, they could potentially have a radicalized view on some issue and decide that what they want to do is to find a group of people. And they identify, because you can find license plate data, you can find out the race, sex, gender, the age of people who have that license plate, and you could gather those and then say, I want to find those, And so they would use our data even though we didn't really authorize them to do that.
Yeah,
That's
that's where
what I
I'm struggling a bit, and when people talk about it being used for immigration enforcement, obviously it's not something we do.
Yeah.
I don't want that happening
We would
in
never
our
do
city. But I don't know how effective using the flock data would be for immigration enforcement. You know, obviously, if they're after someone, they know their name, they know their address, they're hunting that person. I mean, if they had the license plate, yes, I mean, they could tell that they were in Oxford maybe, or they hit this camera. But again, it's not gonna track you to a specific location. So, yeah, I understand the concern, I understand what Mr. Cook
That
was
part
saying.
is helpful, I think.
But again, and to my knowledge, that's not happening. But yes, I understand that's a concern.
So when another state or local police department requests our data,
Yeah.
they don't need our permission?
Yeah, we have to give them access to it.
That's my point. I don't think people understood, which is one of the questions I wanted to ask before the public came up. So do you want to go through when another state or local police department does a search that includes us, what a hit and not hit looks like, and what data they can and cannot receive with our permission?
Well, so I'm not sure if I fully understand your question. We get a share request from an agency, and we can always revoke that share request. But once we give them that access, then they have the ability to search our ALPR cameras, and we can limit certain aspects of that. Like, they don't have access to those security footage cameras, those Condor cameras I mentioned. There would be no reason we see that another agency, even if they're here in Butler County, would want to, view our uptown parks or, something like that. And there's hot list restrictions, like our local hot list, like we're watching a car, we don't necessarily share that access either. So there are restrictions, but once we grant that access, and that's what I mean, when they do an all-network search, it's showing that they accessed our data, even if there's no data there. And maybe I need a better understanding to the insights page on Flock and the admin page to dig into that, but that's my understanding. We can go do audits and determine that, but yeah.
Sure. I just got the impression that the public thought that there is open access from other police departments to our data without our permission, and that's not the case, right?
No, that's not.
We have to approve it.
They have to have OPD's permission, and I think that's what council's talking about, is do we want to restrict that down?
Did everybody understand?
So I guess my question is it basically one-time access? Like, each time they do a search, they don't have to call you on the phone and say, oh, can we have access to your Flock data on this date?
Yeah.
No, like, you're just saying, we give open access to these jurisdictions. They can search it whenever they want, right?
Yeah, yes, because of the effectiveness, in any other law enforcement field or innovation that we've had, or you go back to the 1930s when the FBI created the National Academy to help with collaboration and improving technology. You look at the LEADS, the Law Enforcement Automated Data System. It's all to improve data sharing and access, and that's why in the county we share our records management systems. It's why Miami University is working on a project to get on the county system. It makes sense. It's what counselors have always said, like, work together, have mutual aid agreements. But now suddenly with Flock data, it's people are taken aback a little bit with it. But yes, you're correct, Councilor Bench. Like, once they ask, we don't want them calling us every time
Yeah,
they
right.
need to run a search, because
Right.
then we would never get
But-
anything done. But we can also revoke it, and that's
Yes.
what Lieutenant Price learned some tools today, where if we saw some suspicious searches from another agency, we could just simply revoke it, and we've done that before.
Well, I mean, I think that before another jurisdiction, they don't have to notify you specifically about a particular search they're going to
Correct.
conduct, but they have to fill out a form when they conduct their search.
Yes.
And that form becomes a permanent record in the Flock system,
Correct.
and that can be audited. right?
Yeah,
Like
I'm sorry.
audited, like.
Yes.
So have we ever done an audit of our flock system?
Yeah, so we've run, there's something called a network audit and an organizational audit. Organizational audit looks at just your own agency. Network looks at what's being searched on your network. And so when we've received public records requests from some of the newspaper or media companies, that's how we're getting it, right? We're running that
Yeah.
audit and sharing data. Now, the data, I mean, again, I don't know that we have, I think that's where Flock is looking at improving some tools, because to sit and go through all that data, we
Right,
don't have
and
those experts there. But yes, it is audited, it's tracked.
Yes.
And if misuse is found, you may be in violation,
Yes.
not only of an agency
Yes.
policy, but of criminal law.
Yes, and some of the recent highly publicized instances of cities revoking their flock contracts due to public pressure, I think has resulted because audits have revealed that the city was disclosing information that they had no idea that they were disclosing, right? And so that's why I come back to the term audit, like, we're sort of speculating. If we had a, you know, if there was some specific example of someone taking our information from Flock and using it for inappropriate means, that would be one thing. But I don't think we have that, right? And so just because the city of Dayton found several instances whereby that happened, doesn't mean that those same instances occur in Oxford.
Sure. And I don't know, I can't speak specific to Dayton or Shaker Heights that we talked about. But sometimes I think it's just a matter of maybe the city council didn't understand the depth of what was being shared, and maybe the police department didn't understand. And then once you find out and see this, it's like, whoa, that was not our understanding. But you take it, you know, that's why I think these conversations are important, and take a dive into it, so.
I think I would like to see query by query approval, if that could be automated in ways that don't allow for vagueness for things that we approve of. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Yeah, and whether that's a possibility or not, I don't know. I think if we got to that point where we feel like we need to, I think, and that's where I'm talking with a specific neighboring city about what they did. Because I think if it got to that point, like, I would just want to restrict the access down to just us, and but I need to learn more about it. I mean, it's ever-changing technology, you know?
I would feel, if we can implement that, because that was not my understanding when we talked about approval and permission. I thought it was query by query, and that is apparently not the case. I think it should be the case. And I understand a lot of that might be unquestionable, very simple things that we would always approve about violent crimes and things like that. But if any, because in some places this has been recorded, very vague answers are given about why they're doing the query, and then misuse can happen, regardless of audit. You find out afterward, but.
Yeah, and I think early on, especially when we were new to Flock and trying to learn it, I mean, some, you know, not having policies and set up and how, what you're actually gonna title your searches. It was just free text, and, you know, and so we probably had some of those, I think, in our own organization where it needed to be, you know, and that's where training and policies and expectations come in. You need to be more specific in your search reasoning, so.
Is that something we could work on in advance?
Yeah, I don't come here pretending to know all the answers. I don't, it's actually, believe it or not a tool that I use every day. You know, it's our investigators, it's usually staff below me that are actually on the ground delivering the public safety product to the citizens that are using it every day. Sometimes I'm not even the best one to stand up here and answer those questions, but certainly that's something we can examine and look at and come back and report to council on.
I would love that, and also a clear auditing system that's just made more public, that we can understand. So I believe in how much good this does and how much it helps. Sure. I want you to have that, but I am concerned about these things. But those are the two things that would completely quell any of my concerns. If we had some protocol that automatically judged query by query whether it is something that fits our concern and values or not, and then gets a look over by who we trust and an audit system that just makes sure on the large scale it's happening. Yes, ma'am.
A couple of things that I submitted to Doug to pass on for the discussion included concerns about the Foreign Intelligence Service Surveillance Act that was in the news at the end of last week. And the House and the Senate have not renewed it thus far. I haven't seen the news today. So I don't know if anything has changed since then. But one of the concerns has to do with the aspect of what is being called backdoor searches. And what that creates is a vulnerability into the system. And what that means is that, like, say, for example, through the FISA, that the government is surveilling a non-U.S. citizen who may be, in actuality, communicating with a U.S. citizen. As a result of that, the U.S. citizen gets caught up in that surveillance. And so when we talk about and thank you, by the way, for the excellent presentation, the fact that we have the possibility of over 2,000 other agencies looking at this information, there is this sort of a wiggle room that would create this backdoor scenario where that surveillance of the non-U.S. citizen could be brought in to the FISA flock issue. And so those kinds of things are, in terms of management of the data, are a little gray. And this is kind of new. And I had a discussion with someone who was concerned about this, and I can see how that might happen, because the human element, as we have tightened our ship and tried to close the doors and protect our data, there are spaces where data can be leaked. And that would possibly involve surveillance. And in that case, it may also be a violation of the Fourth Amendment. I mean, it's a multi-layered cake, if you will. And so when we're looking at, in the case that you presented in terms of auditing, how might that information be used? And in terms of our own safeguards of our data, that we try to ensure that we are not violating the rights of citizens.
So I reviewed the items you sent me about that act, and everything I found in that act deals with wiretapping and listening to conversations. I mean, we're talking about surveillance of foreign actors, and I understand what you're saying, but I couldn't find any ties to the flock system. And I think though, so I didn't see any application in that, and I would defer to the law director. I don't know that he's had a chance to read that, but I did not understand literally your email that explained that, because it had nothing to do with ALPR. I don't know if you were trying to make the transition to a backdoor search could happen into flock, and yes, that's a concern. That's the data security concerns that, I'm not an IT person, but Flock assures us they take these steps. They are CGIS certified, so they are taking all the steps they can to prevent something like that from happening. But it's, again, no different than Axon, who we contract with, Motorola, that has a lot more sensitive data. It has conversations of police officers and people with their body cam. That data, which contains social security numbers and much more, that also is a concern for data breach. And so, again, I'm not an IT expert. I can't really answer that, but I didn't see any correlation between that act and how it would affect with the flock. And again, I'll just reiterate that flock is being taken from a public place, the vehicle's in a public place. It is not the same. It's not a violation of the Fourth Amendment. I could just stand there and take pictures all day. Obviously, that would be tough for me to do. But so I don't have any concern with that act and the flock system.
I think that, and I understand what you're saying, but when we're looking at certain counties having agreements with the federal government, that creates a gray area for the rest of the constituents within that county, wherever it may be.
Sure.
And in that case, having the flock cameras available, they are potentially a door, or that back door that can lead into elements that use our flock cameras to follow through on a surveillance or an investigation that is being done by some other agency.
Okay,
Yes.
I think I understand that a
Yes.
little better. Yeah, no, I think that's the concern, and, you know, but I will tell you, most police agencies that I work with locally have the same stance as me when it comes to immigration. I understand we have a very vocal county sheriff and when it comes to immigration, but that's just not our function. We don't do that. Are there some agencies that may? Sure. But I think we're deliberate in who we grant the share requests to. That makes sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I get it.
Yeah.
But I realize that people are concerned about that.
Right.
And so it is something to at least investigate, to think
Yes.
about, and to include it in our plan of the
I agree.
flock cameras.
First of all, I want to thank you for your presentation, Chief Jones, and for answering the question about the MOU. That was based on the meeting we had in February 6th, 2024, when we voted unanimously. I think it was a different council at the time. Councilor Ragu was not there that night, but we voted in support of entering into the flock contract. Information changes over time. And so one of the things that I want to also do is to thank the public, because it's the public's job to ask questions and to hold elected officials accountable. And I have to say that when this first started coming up, in social settings, I was stopped at Moon Co-op when I just wanted to buy a soup. And a gentleman asked me about flock who recognized me. I didn't recognize him. And I was just about to duck out and just go on with my day, but I ended up sitting with him and talking about flock. I've met with a few people about flock. I even stopped a police officer, an OPD officer, as I was walking on campus and said, hey, can I just ask you your perception? And I'm not expecting an officer to say, yeah, we don't need it. But it was helpful to hear from that officer's perspective some of what you shared with us today. In the beginning, when people started asking me about flock, I frankly, I'll be honest, I was a little annoyed because I just sort of wanted it to go away. When Ann Fuhrer talked about the presentation that I had given at Reverend Cummings' civics education class, and I just knew flock was going to come up. And I didn't raise it, but I took some notes from some of the communication we had about the limited access to flock so that I was prepared to answer some questions. And over time, as I've seen more and read more, I trust flock less and less. I trust you. I trust OPD. We've all said this, and I've said to the public, I trust our officers, I trust the leadership, and many people in the public will nod along with me and say the same thing. I do have questions about flock as a company and their practices. I have some questions, and then I have another concern that I wanted to share. One question I have is there an option, I read in a report from Kettering, for someone to search and just use not specified as an option? So they might not say immigration, but they can say not
Yeah, so
specified
that was
reason.
what I was trying to address with Councilor Bracken's question, because there was just free text, but now it's again, through time when these things happen, you at minimum have to put in the type of offense, and I would have to go back to there was
Sure.
something else,
Mhm.
but you could also you could lie about
You could
what
lie,
you're-
right.
Which, that's a whole nother integrity issue.
Mhm.
But again, you could lie about why you need to run this license plate or through a database, or, so that's where integrity comes in.
Sure.
So importantly, but yeah, I believe that issue where you could just put these, like you could test or something else. Now I can't do that, so.
Thank you. And then I was having a conversation with somebody, and I was giving a lot of the reasons why, we should feel confident with Flock and all of the other tools that you have available that actually provide more information than Flock does. And the question came back, are we not arguing ourselves out of Flock? If we're saying that there are all these other tools available that provide more information that we can use to solve crime, given the concerns from the public, why Flock?
Well, so I think as I pointed out, like Flock provides a piece of the puzzle, right? Like, it might be the investigative lead to identify a suspect through a license plate, and it's a lead. And then, okay, now I know who the suspect is, and now I might have enough to go get a search warrant for their house or for their phone, or there's other tools. But just for instance, like if you have an incident occurs at Walmart, for instance, a robbery or a theft or whatever, their surveillance cameras may capture the make and model of that car that's leaving, but it doesn't capture a license plate. And so Flock gives you an extra tool to help narrow it down. You may be able to solve that years down the road but Flock is just an additional tool. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, but yeah, I don't want to. I'm just saying there are more sensitive data sets out there, but it's different data. So.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to raise something that hasn't been raised tonight, and it brings things a little bit more locally, and it's our state. So there is a bill that was introduced into the House in January 28th of 25, so it's kind of been a little dormant, it feels like. It's House Bill 26. I forget the actual name of the bill, but it would require all local law enforcement agencies in Ohio to cooperate with ICE for immigration enforcement, and would penalize local officials for not cooperating by withholding DHS funds that might be used for policing. And that's when I think about the possibility of that's a red line for me in terms of if that started advancing. I feel like a tool that has access to these license plates, even though, yes, they're just license plates, in a state where, as we've seen over and over again, the state legislature continually tries to usurp home rule and make it harder for local jurisdictions to operate according to the values of their community, then as much as we want to say that we will not cooperate or would prefer not to, it becomes a state law, and local law enforcement hands are tied, and then whatever we have, they have access to, I would imagine. And perhaps the law director can make some comments if he's prepared to. If not, we can have another, perhaps, conversation. We can't predict the future.
I have some other comments, and I can address that.
Okay. But I would encourage people to pay attention to that bill, because I do think it has greater implications than the level that we've been talking about. It's not federal in that same way, the way Councilor Ornelas has been talking about, but it is more local. And so I think about this as three concentric circles, right? There's OPD, who I trust, there's Flock, who I trust less, and now there's this outer ring of this looming House Bill 26.
Right, and I'll let the law director speak to
Sure,
that.
I
law,
understand.
But, I mean, I will just say, like, I mean, if that law were to pass, then now we're dealing with other issues as well,
I
not just
understand.
Flock, but, you know, if we're served with a warrant or some sort of legal process, whether it's Flock data or a warrant to go assist ICE with an arrest, because it's a legal warrant, we're gonna follow legal process. So, so I understand the concern, but, I'm not, the law director could speak to what that, I don't know what that bill actually says.
Right, and I'm actually
Yeah.
saying this for the benefit of the public,
Right.
and I had spoken briefly with the law director, or at least mentioned it to you, so. That's all for me, at least right now.
Okay, a couple comments. One, I'm just trying to help frame this discussion for you. So these are not editorial comments, but when people drive, it's a license to drive. It's a privilege, not a right. So use of the public roads, by definition, means that there's not an expectation of privacy, and that's how the law looks at it when it looks to one's rights. In addition, a license plate is intended to be an identifier for a variety of reasons that we all recognize. Surveillance takes many forms, and so we're having a conversation today about a form of surveillance. The FISA warrants, the insidiousness of those from those who argue against them is that it's monitoring communication, vastly different than what a Flock camera is monitoring, but it is still a form of surveillance that to some people may be considered too invasive. The other thing I'll say is that with the growth of technology, you know, I come from a day when if you wanted to communicate and it wasn't face-to-face, you wrote a letter, you picked up the phone, or you got a telegram. So the use of warrants was pervasive because it had to be. Now it is not. And so, you know, the struggle that I have as a lawyer who used to be a public defender and practice in the criminal arena is, at what point do you surrender these ideas of warrants? For 50-plus years, we've had, it's amazing how much constitutional law has come out of Ohio, Terry versus Ohio, the idea of reasonable suspicion. I don't have to have probable cause. Flock cameras could be used, the information gained from Flock cameras could be used as a means to define reasonable suspicion that could lead to a stop that somehow criminal activity is afoot. It's not probable cause. But it is some type of judicially governed review to determine whether or not the use of that information is appropriate. I only share that with you for that there's a legal context to analogize each one of these situations. But with the increase of technology, the law hasn't been able to figure out how these tools that the constitutional protections are there, how they interplay with all of that. I mean, I'm being tracked right now.
Yeah.
I'm being listened to right now.
Right.
The NSA has the ability to tap into your phone, no warrants. So it's the slippery slope of the world that we live in, and from a legal perspective, I cannot offer you much hope. And the rest of that is, I don't believe that we can expect the legislature, although this has just been introduced as a bill, House Bill 26, will be sensitive. This legislature will be sensitive to the concerns that you've heard expressed by the citizens and that you share. And so that leads to the choices of you can accept it all, you can accept some of it, or you can accept none of it. And that's ultimately the policy decision that you'll be faced with. Sounds like I'm preaching, but
Thank you.
Just
sorry for that.
Just another lawyer's follow-up to your perspective. I'm somewhat surprised by the vehemence with which the public is reacting to these Flock cameras. I get it, like, there's massive amounts of data out there that's being collected. It could potentially be used against you. but people enthusiastically turn over their private information in these devices every single day. And they don't think twice about it. Like, you're really giving people private information that's protected by the Fourth Amendment every time you use this. The information that we're collecting through Flock is not protected by the Fourth Amendment. So I guess I just don't understand. There seems to be a disconnect in society. Like, why are we so willing to give our information to these cell phone companies without any limits based on their promises? But we're so, and I think maybe the answer is, and this is just editorializing, that Flock is being controlled by the government, right? Cell phone companies are private, so maybe they think, oh, a private company is not going to screw me as bad as, you know, the government is. I don't know what the answer is, but there certainly is a disconnect between the two in my mind.
I will say that it relates to cell phone companies, warrants are required.
Yes.
I mean, so
for sure.
It's where all of this comes from, and then I think as it relates to the Flock technology, the belief is that because the driving is not a right, it's a privilege, that there's a less expectation of privacy, and I think that becomes the policy rationale behind those who support the technology and I'll call it the unfettered use, more or less.
Do you mind if I chip in?
No,
I don't know.
absolutely.
I don't know that I have a question per se, but probably as the council member who's done the most ride-alongs ever in the history of council consecutively, I've seen them use it, right? Like I've been on ride-alongs. I've seen it as a tool in their toolkit. And to echo what has been said a lot tonight, I trust OPD. They use it immensely responsibly, and it does help to verify. You know, you have two conflicting stories from two different people, and one person was right and the other person was maybe less honest. And I've seen them be able to use Flock to verify that. And I will also say, too, this is a very interesting conversation for me. And I think at least a couple of people in the crowd have heard me talk about this before, so sorry for making you all hear it again. Where I work, we have a technology-facilitated reporting system, and it has saved a lot of young lives. But we have to trust a tech company, and I am inherently jaded around mega, largely tech-based, capitalist-driven corporations, right? Like, I don't believe that they are looking out for my safety, they're looking out for their bottom line. But one has to ask themselves, is just being jaded an appropriate place to govern from? Or do you listen to the people who are using the tools every day? How do you set those parameters? And I'm encouraged by the conversation that we're having in the sense that we are trying to find what those parameters are. And where is our limit? And where is our line? And where are we stepping too far? Where do we need to step back? Relating back to what I started saying, that tech company that saves a lot of lives is built on that inherent trust in our partners. The partner that my organization signs an MOU with is the end user of that data. We get young people and adults who misuse our system, not frequently, but it does happen, and we have to send that data to the end user. And then we have to rely on our trust with that partner that they are not going to turn that data over to their state government about a young person seeking reproductive care, about a tip that's come in about the immigration status of their families. And it is amazing that that hasn't happened so far, but when you think about what is that risk versus the lives saved, ultimately it comes down to this like very terrible trolley problem that we are all now embedded in with our increased reliance on technology. And I'm not saying that we all need to become Luddites and go back to telegrams, but it's something that we really need to be keeping in the forefront of this conversation. So like I said, I don't know that I have questions. I think my sense of this conversation is that finding those parameters, if they exist, that meet what OPD needs, what the public is asking for, what council deems appropriate, maybe that's a pie in the sky aspiration. Maybe that Venn diagram doesn't exist because it's 3 non-overlapping circles. But maybe there's a little bit of that narrow area where we can find an agreement. So I will also say thank you to Chief Jones. I know that this was a lot to pull together and a lot to respond to. And like and I'm sure you all get it too, and all the officers on OPD, it's been building up for a while, and this felt like, it was a deluge to respond to, and thank you for doing so.
I'd just like to say that I appreciate the chief, and I'm glad that you were able to listen to what the public concerns were and what council's concerns were. I think if, God forbid, somebody kidnapped my granddaughter and we had their license plate, I would want to have access to this system. I'm sorry. If you're worried about them watching you go in and out of town, I want you to have that information to find that person. If there was a robbery in town and we have the license number, I want you to be able to know where that thief is in another community. So I think that data has the potential to be very valuable and maybe invaluable. I think that there are still risks. And so what I think our discussion might reveal is that our focus needs to be on how can we mitigate some of those risks and not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but let's see if there are ways that we can mitigate some of that. That's my opinion.
Well, I'll weigh in at the end here. And thanks, Chief. I know that was a lot to put together. You've been fielding questions from us for a couple weeks. And thanks for everybody that spoke tonight. Tom, your words resonate with me. We all think about a certain jurisdiction very close to us every day. Janice, your words, you can't turn over data you don't have, will stick in my mind. I think Bill summed it up very nicely. I mean, I want our police officers to have the best tools in their toolkits for things, but we're going to keep talking as a council and keep researching. I feel like maybe we haven't done a good job, maybe with policy that should be in place on this, just because it's tech and it's changing all the time. It's changed since we implemented it. If we need to put some guardrails in place, we will. If something radical happens and we need to discontinue our flock service, then we'll certainly look at that too. But I really appreciate the discussion we had tonight. I really do. So keep coming at us, keep bringing us questions. We'll keep doing the best we can. So with that, I think we're ready to move on, and we can go to announcements and communications, and I'll go to the city manager.
Thank you. Well, yes, I indeed, too, thought we had an excellent discussion, public input, and I want to thank Chief Jones, because I know he put a lot of time into this presentation and a lot of thought in the questions that were given to him, so thank you, Chief Jones. A couple things. As you know, the city contracts with the Regional Income Tax Agency to administer our local income tax. This service has proven to be very effective and efficient in the collection and administration of our income tax. In 2025, RETA collect $11.7 million total for the general fund and fire EMS fund, with an administrative cost of $104,706. So this cost represented 0.89%, less than 1% of the city's total collection cost. We pay a 3% retainage up front, so as a result, the city will receive a refund of $250,661, and of course that refund will be deposited in the general fire and EMS funds. One last thing is, as Steve Chafin mentioned, that the Charter Review Commission did complete their work after 3 meetings, and I'll be making a presentation at our first meeting in July on the recommendations. They're recommending 8 changes to our Oxford City Charter. And as Steve mentioned, we did package them as together rather than individually. There's advantages and disadvantages whichever way you go, but we decided to package them as one. The last several charter review commissions did that as well, and we had success in getting them adopted. So I'll be making a presentation. You'll have an ordinance to consider for first reading at our next council meeting. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Dreisbach?
Nothing tonight.
Chief? Heidi?
I'll be quick, I promise. I'm happy to share that our audit is officially completed.
Yay.
It only took 6 months. We received our opinion letter today, which marks the official end We had 0 financial issues reported in the audit, so our ACFR is compiled. We will be submitting to the Certificate of Achievement Program of the GFOA for our annual award consideration.
Fantastic. All right. Chief Dethridge? All right. Chad?
Just briefly, thought I would use the opportunity of a public forum for a couple quick save the dates. July 2nd, which is a Thursday, we will have our Freedom Festival, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Oxford Community Park. Live music, food trucks, of course, fireworks at the end. This is a big kind of summer tradition in Oxford. Behind the scenes, lots of city departments are involved in it. We look forward to it being another great, successful year. So, celebrating America 250. Also, another save the date, Thursday, July 16th, 5:30 p.m. at the Tribe will be a public community meeting regarding the concept design of the new skate park. So we'll have representatives from the American Ramp Company in town, and they want to get public input. So wanted to use this opportunity to spread the word.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Perry?
No, thank you.
Ms. Green? Ms. Barber?
Nothing, thank you.
All right, I'm going to use this moment. This book, 63 years old, Steve McHugh, longtime law director here, found it. It is the Charter and Code of Ordinances for the Village of Oxford. I would like to know if there's a repository for such a historical document. This was adopted December 17th, 1963. I turned to the charter, and it's amazing how when you read the words from a book that has age behind it, how they resonate more. And it has the exact same preamble that your charter does. We, the people of the city of Oxford. Amen.
Okay, I think because of time, one thing. I would like to publicly thank the city manager and service director for lowering the flag for Steve Snyder. And I just want to say that his loss was a huge loss to our community. And it was a huge loss, not because of his politics, but because of his integrity. And you always knew that Steve was fair, and Steve listened, and Steve cared about his community. And I think we need more people like Steve in our communities who give unselfish service. And I think it was appropriate that the flag was lowered, and I thank you very much. And I know the family and the citizens of the community appreciate it. So thank you.
Nothing for me, thanks.
Thank you to those who showed up tonight. It's rare that we have this many people in the audience.
Yeah, I also want to thank the public for talking. I think communication and conversations, one-on-one, small group is how we move things forward. And sometimes it is hard as a council member when you're at like TJ Maxx or something and someone's stopping and asking you. But I actually do enjoy those conversations. They make me think. And thank you to Chief Jones for the presentation again, and to OPD. I do want to share that on Sunday, my husband and I went to the Dayton Air Show. That's how we chose to celebrate our Sunday. And we knew rain was in the forecast. And we went there, and it was an overcast, cloudy day. And we were holding out for the Blue Angels, if you've ever seen them perform, if you're into that sort of thing, and I am. They're amazing. And we ran into some friends from Oxford there with their little kids, and we saw the clouds rolling in just before the Blue Angels were ready to perform. And my husband had an idea that maybe if we just took shelter under the wing of a C-17, would have worked out if the rain was just a gentle summer rain, but it came straight at us. But you know, there was a metaphor there, because there were people, strangers, huddled together, getting rained on. I mean, like porta potties were being like moved around by the wind. But we were holding on to each other, and we were getting battered, and we were soaked. But we stuck it out. And unfortunately, the Blue Angels canceled. But for me, it felt like a metaphor for the country. I feel like we're in a bit of a storm, a big one, actually. But I think if we hold on to each other, and we shelter each other, and we stick it out, we can get through it. And that's all for me tonight.
Nothing for me tonight.
Thank you, Amber. And I too want to thank all the people who approached me at Burrito Loco, the Kroger shopping aisles, Cofenia on Friday, to talk and share their ideas about the issues that I shared regarding flock. And again, thanks again, Chief, for your presentation, and take care and have a good rest of the week here, folks.
All right, once again, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chief. I really appreciate it. I, too, want to acknowledge the loss of Steve Snyder, who was really excellent to serve with my first 2 years on council. Many, many stories. But with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. I can't believe I didn't have to take my vote one time.
Nope, everybody was great.
Between the housing, at least Cheshire Place has now broken ground. That was one of the top, when are we gonna break ground? And the other one was the flock. It's like grocery store, so then you're getting ready to leave and pay, and people are like, oh, can I talk to you just for a minute? I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, but, hey, I like them because then it gets me to think too.
Yeah.